Good morning and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I've got my wife's 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk on the lift. First service, I gotta do an oil change and rotate the tires, but this time around we also need to do a fluid change in the front diff, transfer case, and the rear diff. So this is a Gen 4, which is from 2011 to 2020 WK2 Grand Cherokee. There were, I believe, 4 different transfer cases that came in this model, depending upon which trim level you purchased and what options you purchased. And the main significance is I think it was pretty much on the Laredo models, you get an MP2010 transfer case, which is a single speed full-time transfer case. That transfer case takes a special spec gear oil that you'd have to get from Mopar or find a Mopar equivalent. Everything above that, there's the QuadraTrack, the QuadraTrack 2, the QuadraDrive 2. They would be like your MP3010, MP3023. The 3010 is a single speed with electronic limited slip diff. That one pretty much would be for your SRT 8 models. And then you had your QuadraTrack 2 and your QuadraDrive 2, which were your 2-speed, 4-wheel high and 4-wheel low. And they were in your Trailhawks, your Overland models. And those came coupled with an electronic limited slip rear diff as well with certain models, such as the Trailhawk like we have here. Those take ATF plus 4. So it's pretty simple. Most of them are going to be ATF plus 4, but I would definitely encourage anybody to look and see exactly what model you have before you go ahead to do this. Front axle takes your standard 75W85 gear oil. On this model, it'll be ATF plus 4 for the transfer case. And I have an electronic limited slip differential in the rear of this one. So there is a special Mopar fluid for that. You can put standard 75W85 gear oil. Then you just have to add 4 ounces of friction modifier to it. But I chose to go with the Mopar fluid because it's already mixed to the amount that you need. That fluid would be this one right here. It is not cheap. It's about $55 a quart. Then I got our fluid for our front axle. And then I got the ATF 4 plus for the transfer case. So, on the front diff, we have our fill plug right here, our drain plug right here. Now I have a 5.7 Hemi in this motor. So as you can see, there's plenty of clearance in here. From what I understand, if you have a 3.6, the Pentastar 3.6, it's a little tighter to get in here, but still easily doable. Whenever you're doing any kind of a fluid change on the diff, front and rear, or on the transfer case, you always want to loosen the fill plug first. Do not pull the drain plug without loosening that fill plug, because if there is a problem with the fill plug, you're going to leave yourself stranded if you can't get fluid back in here. So always make sure you can break that fill plug loose first. These are all 8mm hex head bolts on the transfer case. We got our drain plug right here. Our fill plug is right up here, which you can get up right around the exhaust. And then on our rear diff, we have our fill plug right here and our drain plug right here. And, oh, that's interesting. Mine is a Torx on the fill plug. So I'll have to see exactly what size that one is. Wait a minute. My bad. Oh, that's a mounting bolt. Fill plug's right up here. Now the front differential takes just about a quart, 1.1 quarts. The transfer case can take anywhere from 1 quart to 2 quarts, depending upon what model you have. The 2010, I believe, is just over 1 quart, and then there's some variation with the with the MP3 0 models, and this one is a 3023, and this one takes 2 quarts. On the rear diff, if you have just a standard rear diff, I believe it's only 1 quart of fluid, but if you have one with electronic limited slip, it's going to be 1.5 quarts. All right, so I'm going to finish up this oil change, get the filter swapped, get that drain plug back in, and then we're going to go ahead. We'll start with the front diff since we're up here, and we'll get that drained. Okay, we're ready to get this started. I forgot to mention before, I had already pulled the skid plates down. There's a front splash shield under the oil pan, which you don't have to remove for doing the diffs, but I was doing my oil change. There is a skid plate under the front diff, and then there's one under the transfer case. So this is the transfer case. It's held on by, there's 5 16mm bolts. Here's our splash shield, and then here's our excuse me, I'm sorry. There's our transfer. This is our transfer case skid plate, and again, it's got four. Oh yeah, can't speak today. Excuse me, 5 16mm bolts. This one is our front diff, and this one has got 4 13mm bolts holding that one in place. All right, so I already cracked these free because I do not have a way of holding the camera while doing it, so I did break them loose. Well, maybe not as much as I thought. Once you crack them free, they should spin right out. Excuse me. Okay, so this is our fill plug. I'm going to take this one out first. I love the smell of gear oil in the morning. And then here's our drain plug. There we go. Drain plug's nice and clean. All right, I'm gonna let that drain out, and I'll come back once we put the plugs back in and we're ready to fill it. Something I want to mention quick, and I'm going to come over in the light. These drain plugs have a small O-ring right on the base of them. So when you're wiping them down, you just want to inspect that O-ring, make sure there's no tears, cracks, breaks, or make sure the O-ring is intact, because that will be what seals up your surface. All right, I'm just going to let this drip out, then we'll get it closed up. All right, so I'm set up to go ahead and fill this. Using a small fluid transfer pump. You can get it pretty much any auto parts store, Amazon. Gonna put the hose in there, pump it up, fill that diff. You want to fill it until it starts to flow out of that fill hole, and then you let it basically drain off until it's just a small trickle, and then go ahead and close that fill plug up, and you'll be full. When you close these up and you torque them, I think the torque is about 24 foot-pounds, so you don't want to kill it. It's an aluminum case. Just get it good and snug. The O-ring will seal it up. And I forgot to mention before, the service interval on these front and rear diffs is, I believe, 30,000 miles. And the transfer case, I believe, is at 60,000 miles. Now, I am way overdue for a diff service. I actually have 55,000 on this Grand Cherokee. I usually do my diffs at about 50 to 60,000. My bad on that one, but as you can see when the fluid came out, it was pretty clear. We'll definitely curious to see how the rear limited slip looks. But I'm going to go ahead and fill this, and I'll come back once we get it topped off. Okay, as you can see, we're full there. Got a little bit of a stream coming out of that excess. Just going to let that slow down a little bit. Don't want to have them over full, because then you can get venting issues where when the fluid heats up and expands, it can start to back up through the vent. Let that trickle down a little more. Now you don't have to go, like I said earlier, you don't have to go with the Mopar fluid on this. You can get any good quality synthetic. I chose to do the Mopar front diff fluid because it calls for 75 W85. The auto parts store I went to get my ATF fluid, they only had 75 W90, which I'm sure probably is really insignificant whether there's a difference, but I wanted to put the same fluid in. And like I said, for the rear, if you have the electronic limited slip, it's really your choice whether you want to add friction modifier or get the Mopar fluid that's already mixed with the correct amount. All right, so we're going to go ahead and snug that up, and the front diff is done. All right, I've got the rear diff draining. Just a little double check here. I realize this one says do not open. So this is not the fill plug. The fill plug is actually right here on the side. So that was my fault. From where I'm standing, I did not see the letters there until I started really looking at it and realizing that was a 10mm hex instead of an 8. Anyway, this is draining out. So I'm going to go ahead and let it drip out. I might flush it out a little bit. The fluid was definitely a lot darker in the rear here than it was up front, but being this is obviously the drive axle. I'm going to go ahead and pump a little fluid through the fill plug just to flush it out since this is so low, and then we'll go ahead and get it filled up. Okay, so we have the rear starting to drip out there. As you can see, I'm going to pull the fill hose out, and you can see it's going to run down there a little bit. And we'll let that slow down a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and put the plug back in, and then the rear will be all done. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get that torqued up, get this cleaned up, move over to the transfer case, and we'll go ahead and get that done. That completes draining and refilling the rear. All right, we're on to the transfer case, last part of the puzzle. So I've already broken the drain plug and the fill plug free. I'm going to go ahead and pull those out, get them draining. Let's get the, now it is a little tricky getting up in here around your exhaust, especially if you got big hands. But it is totally doable. All right, there's our fill plug out, and as you can see, there's a little bit of sealant on there. And now we're going to get the drain plug. Now this is going to be a little messier. I'm going to back up a little bit, raise my catch pan up because this is going to be ATF, and this will be a lot more fluid like than your gear oil. All right, we're going to let this drain down. Then we'll get the drain plug put back in. Then I'll come back when we get this thing filled. Go ahead and get it topped off. Okay, as you can see there, we've got a slight stream coming out, starting to drip down. Took a good 2 full quarts. We're going to work our drain plug into there. I should say our fill plug. All right, gonna go ahead and torque that up and get this all cleaned up. Then we'll come right back. So that's all buttoned up. Okay, so that completes it. All 3 front, the rear diff, and the transfer case have been drained and refilled. Going to go ahead and get the skid plates back on, and we'll come and close this up. Splash shield and skid plates are back in, and that completes the fluid and drain and refill of the front and rear diff and the transfer case. Just so you guys know, anybody that's working with these skid plates, what's actually kind of cool is they have slotted edges on the side here. You put 2 bolts in, you can slide the skid plate right in, put this bolt in, and then it holds the skid plate up so you can get the 2 recessed bolts in easily. This one has 4. These ones here are actually slotted as well, so you can put them in, slide the skid plate in, put the rear ones in while it holds the front end up, and then torque everything up when it's done. All right, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps others out there. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to leave them below. Please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. Thank you very much and have a great day.